Rapunzel. Once upon a time, there lived a man and a woman who had long wished for a child without success. At last, the woman began to hope that her wish would be granted by God. Behind their house, they had a small window that looked out onto a magnificent garden filled with the most beautiful flowers and herbs. However, it was enclosed by a high wall, and no one dared to enter, for it belonged to a powerful enchantress feared by all. The woman stood by the window and noticed a bed of rampion, also known as Rapunzel, that looked so fresh and green that she longed for it. Her desire became so intense that she grew pale and ill. Alarmed, her husband asked, "What troubles you, dear wife?" She replied, "If I cannot eat some of the rampion from the garden behind our house, I will surely die." The man, loving his wife deeply, thought to himself, "Rather than let my wife die, I will fetch her the rampion, no matter the cost." At twilight, he climbed over the wall into the enchantress's garden, grabbed a handful of rampion, and returned to his wife. She immediately made a salad of it and ate it greedily, finding it so delicious that the next day her craving tripled. To have peace, the husband once more climbed into the garden that evening. But this time, as he descended the wall, he was confronted by the enchantress. "How dare you enter my garden and steal my rampion like a thief?" she exclaimed angrily. "You will pay for this." The terrified man pleaded, "Please show mercy. I did this out of desperation. My wife saw your rampion and longed for it so badly that she would have died without tasting it." The enchantress paused, then softened. "If what you say is true, I will allow you to take as much rampion as you like, on one condition. You must give me the child your wife will soon bear. It will be well cared for, and I will raise it as my own." In his fear, the man agreed, and when his wife gave birth, the enchantress appeared, named the child Rapunzel, and took her away. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child under the sun. When she turned 12, the enchantress locked her in a tall tower deep in the forest. The tower had no door or stairs, only a small window at the top. Whenever the enchantress wished to enter, she would stand at the base of the tower and call, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Rapunzel's hair was long and golden, as fine as spun gold. When she heard the enchantress's call, she would let down her braids, which stretched 20 ells, and the enchantress would climb up. After a few years, it happened that the king's son was riding through the forest and heard a beautiful song coming from the tower. Captivated, he stopped to listen. The song was Rapunzel's, who sang to pass the time in her solitude. The prince wished to meet the singer, but found no way into the tower. He returned home, but the song had so touched his heart that he came back every day to listen. One evening, as he hid behind a tree, he saw the enchantress arrive and heard her call, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." The prince decided to try his luck. The next evening, at dusk, he approached the tower and called, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." The braids came tumbling down, and the prince climbed up. Rapunzel was frightened at first, for she had never seen a man before. However, the prince spoke kindly to her, explaining that her singing had moved his heart so deeply that he had to see her. Soon, Rapunzel's fear melted away. When the prince asked if she would be his wife, and seeing that he was young and handsome, she thought, "He will love me more than old Dame Gothel." She said yes and placed her hand in his. They agreed that he would bring her a skein of silk each evening, so she could weave a ladder to escape. Once finished, she would descend, and he would carry her away on his horse. They continued meeting in secret every evening, as the enchantress only visited during the day. All went unnoticed until one day, Rapunzel, in her innocence, asked the enchantress, "Tell me, Dame Gothel, why is it so much harder for me to pull you up than the young prince? He climbs in a moment." Furious, the enchantress cried, "You wicked child! I thought I had hidden you from the world, yet you have deceived me." In her rage, she seized Rapunzel's golden hair, wrapped it around her hand, and cut it off. Then she took Rapunzel to a desolate desert where she left her to live in misery. That same day, the enchantress fastened the severed braids to the tower window. When the prince arrived and called for Rapunzel, she let the hair down as usual. But when he climbed up, he found the enchantress instead, her eyes blazing with malice. "Aha," she sneered. "You came for your dearest, but the bird has flown. Rapunzel is lost to you forever." In despair, the prince leapt from the tower. Though he survived, the thorns below pierced his eyes, and he was blinded. For years, the prince wandered through the forest, living off roots and berries, weeping for his lost love. Eventually, his path led him to the desert, where Rapunzel lived, in sorrow. One day, he heard a familiar voice and followed it. When he reached her, Rapunzel recognized him and threw her arms around him, weeping. 2 of her tears fell onto his eyes, and miraculously, his sight was restored. With joy, the prince led Rapunzel back to his kingdom, where they were welcomed with open arms. They lived together in happiness and contentment for many years.